So, anyone who would like to ask a question?
I have the privilege
Yes.
of holding on to the mic.
Yes,
Yes.
Mr.
Good evening.
Herman
Herman
Laurel. You can direct the
Yes.
question to anyone. So please identify yourself and direct your question to any one of our panelists here.
Yes, I'm from the Asian Century Philippines Strategic Studies Institute. And of course, I've been debating this and discussing this, and we've been writing about this South China Sea dispute between China and the Philippines for the past 15 years, as Bobby Tiglao has mentioned earlier. But I think the bottom line is very simple. If the Americans were not allowed to reassert its dominance in Philippine politics, we would not have a problem. Because the suggestions for joint development and so on has been there, signed between President Duterte and President Xi Jinping since 2017. Unfortunately, we got interrupted by the new administration in 2022-2023, and we have this mess. But the mess is now visiting his own office in Malacanang today. But I wanted to bring this up to particularly Victor Gao, because this offers a bit of a ray of light, a bit of hope. As the Politico American magazine reported, and it is reported in Newsweek and many other American magazines, after the Tianjin summit and the September 3 victory parade of China, U.S. Defense Secretary Hegseth announced to the American audience, and it is in this headline of Politico, Pentagon plan prioritizes homeland over China threat. Given your exposure almost every day, I can see you on YouTube and discussions, Mr. Victor Gao. What is your sense? What is the chances of this becoming a real strategic direction of the United States? How withdrawing from the China threat and from Asia, concentrating on its homeland. Unfortunately, on the ground here in the Philippines, we see I assume to be the deep state, not conforming to the Trump administration's pronouncement of withdrawing from the political conflict with China. And we are seeing the biggest arms depot in Asia being built up in Subic, and so on and so forth, the Asian NATO being propagandized at least, if not in reality, actually being done. What is your sense?
Thank you very much. Allow me to be very quick.
Please.
I know other panelists want to contribute their views. First of all, I was doing live commentary when the victory parade was happening in Beijing. I was doing that in the CCTV headquarters. And my impression, allow me to share this with you, that the victory parade on September the 3rd will be judged by history as a major turning point, because what China demonstrated will convince everyone who cares to watch this in the world that China now enjoys military superiority above the United States. Now, the Americans may not agree with me, but when you look at the conventional weapons as well as nuclear weapons, China is not next to the United States. China is actually ahead of the United States. This is very profound, and it will take time to sink in. But that leads to a very important next question. That is, whether the United States wants to pick up a war against China. Let me tell you, as I mentioned, inevitability of peace between China and the United States. Does that mean the United States will not kind of challenge China? No, they will continue to challenge China. Do you know through what means? Through using proxies. They want to turn the Philippines into a proxy. They want to push the Philippines to the forefront, to instigate a war between China and the Philippines in the South China Sea, and the United States hides in the background, and it does not suffer any casualty. The casualties will be either the Chinese on the Chinese side or the Filipinos on the Filipino side. That would be very, very dangerous. There is another potential proxy. That is the separatists in Taiwan. the Americans want to push the separatists in Taiwan to the forefront to instigate a war between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait. Now, other than that, I don't think any general or admiral in Washington will really go in that direction of instigating a direct war with China. Because, let me share with you, after the Korean War, it is a consensus in Washington that the United States does not want to fight a ground war with China anymore. They are sickened by the casualties suffered by the Americans on the Korean Peninsula, because they learned the lesson in the Vietnam War, and Philippines was very much involved in the Vietnam War because the Americans used the Philippines as the naval base, as the air base, etc. China said, don't cross parallel 17. Let me tell you, the Americans never crossed above the parallel 17. China drew a line, and the Americans didn't move 1 inch above parallel 17. That was in the 1960s. That was in the 1970s. Now, allow me to share with you. If you watch the aerial battle between the Pakistanis and the Indians, and I know both of them very well, they both talked about Victor Gao as being very influential when I talked with them on Indian TV and on Pakistani TV. Listen, the Indians suffered losses. President Trump said 6 of your planes were shut down, or even 7. And Pakistani didn't suffer any loss. Do you know why? Because Pakistanis now are very advanced vis-a-vis the Indians, because they use all the military equipment either exported by China to Pakistan or jointly produced between China and Pakistan, to such an extent that India is very much disadvantaged. Why? Because the Pakistanis have learned from the Chinese cooperation that they need to integrate what I say, the space, the sky, that is the Air Force, the ground, that is the Army, and the surface water, that is the Navy, and the submarine, 5 dimensions integrated into one seamless fighting dimension, aided and enabled by information technology and AI. So the Pakistanis now can see further than the Indians, and their missile can shoot further than the Indians. The Indians could not see the incoming planes on the Pakistani side. And they could not see any missile coming because they were not as instantaneously integrated. When you watch the parade in Tiananmen Square on September the 3rd, you saw the troops, the soldiers, the generals, and the military trucks, the missiles, etc., one by one. But in real battle, they do not perform in each capacity. They are merged into a fighting machine. Allow me to share with you my true observation. China has the best technology now in the world to integrate all these dimensions together into one seamless fighting chain of command. Now, the Americans actually panic because they keep saying they can no longer build naval ships. Their production of shipbuilding is only 1% of China. And they do not have enough rare earth. You know, now many countries talk about their rare earth. Myanmar talks about Pakistan talks about they have rare earth. Iran talks about they have rare earth. Turkey says, I have rare earth. But if you really know the truth, to have the rare earth does not solve the problem. You need to extract the rare earth elements from the other minerals, which they actually coexist, and then refine them. Now, if China does not, discontinue choking the Americans in the neck, the Americans are running out of rare earth reserves. They will no longer be able to produce their missiles or the phantom planes, etc., the killing machine that they need to, be involved in any war in the world. So I think we are at a crossroad already, and we already gone beyond the point of no return. That is, the United States has come to the conclusion that it is futile to fight a war with China. And it is actually, they are thinking about using some proxy. Proxy. Philippines is a proxy. Taiwan is a proxy. What else? Do you think India will be a proxy? Let me share with you my observation. After the Pakistani-Indian aero battle, a minimum will take 10 years for India to recover. Really, India is a great country. I admire India very much. But I don't think they want to really find themselves in another war, especially aero war between India and Pakistan, because they now realize they are very much disadvantaged for lack of technology and lack of this integrated command system. That is the reality. I think I'm a realist. I'm a very pragmatic person. And I'm here very honored, and I feel myself very much privileged. And I want to share my truth with you, whatever I really understand. And I do not come to Philippines alone. I travel throughout the world, really. And I want to say, between China and the Philippines, really, being friends will be the better approach. Let's talk about peace. None of us should wear war on our lips. If you listen to China, China never talks about war. China always talks about peace. And I think it is peace that will be the most important thing. China has tried its best to convince the Americans, talk about peace with me. Don't talk about war with me. Because if you talk about war with me, you will be beaten. You will lose the next war as you lost the war in the Korean War. And that will be probably, the Americans probably will find that very much unacceptable. But let's really embrace peace. That's my fundamental point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Gao.